So dear students, today we are going to discuss a very important and relevant topic of statistics, which can be considered as correlation. Correlation is an important part of statistical analysis. So what is correlation? Generally, in very simple sense, correlation is defined as the relationship which is maintained by variables. But in statistics, correlation is defined as the changing relationship between the variables. When there are two variables, then change in value of any one variable, if leads to change in value of another variable, then the relationship in between them can be considered as correlation. So, when the change in value of any one variable leads to change in value of another variable, then the two variables are said to be correlated to each other. So there are a number of variables which are correlated in economics. Like for example, price and demand, price and supply, income and consumption, income and savings, etc. We can take price and demand variable for understanding the definition of correlation. When price of a commodity changes, then it will lead to change in quantity demanded of that commodity. I repeat again, when price changes, then it will lead to change in quantity demanded. Price changes means what? Price may either increase or decrease. So when price of a commodity increases, then generally we can observe that quantity demanded of that commodity decreases, and vice versa. In another case, we can also refer to the example of income and consumption. When income of a consumer increases, then consumption may also increase. So similar will be the case for price and supply, for income and savings, etc. So depending on the relationship between the variables, correlation can popularly be classified into different categories. Among all these categories, first important type of correlation is positive, negative, and zero correlation. What is positive correlation? When the value of any one variable increases, then the value of another variable will also increase. Then the two variables are said to be positively correlated. It means when the direction of change in value of variables are the same, then positive correlation between them prevail. For example, price and supply. When price of a commodity increases, generally we can observe that quantity supply also increases. Income and savings. When income of the consumer increases, savings also increases. So such type of relationship between them is said to be positively correlated. Another is negative correlation. Negative correlation means when the value of one variable increases and the value of another variable decreases and vice versa, then such type of relationship between the variables is said to be negatively correlated. So in case of negative correlation, the direction of change in values of the variables are opposite to each other. That means if one value of one variable increases, another decreases, and vice versa, like price and demand. And third one is zero correlation. If the values of the variables are in no way related to each other, then they are said to be zero correlation. In case of zero correlation, if the value of one variable changes, it does not have any impact on change in value of another. That means when the variables are independent to each other, you can say that when the variables are independent to each other, then the relationship between the variables are said to be zero correlated. So positive, negative, and zero correlation. This is the first important type of correlation. Second type is linear and non-linear correlation. when the change in value of any one variable leads to proportionate change in value of another variable, then the relationship between the variables are said to be proportional. That means if the rate of change of variables are proportionate, then the two variables are said to be proportionately correlated. So, in case of proportionate correlation, the rate of change between the variables must be the same. For example, we assume x and y. These are two variables. X and y are the two variables, and we also assume that the values of x are like this: 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, and the values of y's are like say 3, 6, 12, 24, 48. In between the values of x and y, it is clear that values of x increases by 2 times, and correspondingly the value of y also increases by 2 times. That means the value of changing of x and y, the rate are the same. Therefore, we can say that x and y, these two are linearly correlated to each other. Second one is non-linear correlation. So, if this is linear, opposite to it can be identified as non-linear. It means when the value changing rates between the variables are not the same, then the variables are said to be non-linearly correlated. It means when the change in value of x variable and the change in value of y variable, the rate of changes between them are not the same, then x and y are said to be non-linearly correlated. That means the rate of changes between the variables are not proportionate to each other. Rather, changing rates between the variables are different. For example, say we assume again two variables x and y, and the values of x are like this: 1, 3, 9, 27, and the values of y are like this. So from these values of x and y, we can say that the rate of increase in values of x is 3 times, but there is no specific rate of change in values of y. Initially, value of y initially increases by 2 times, then 5 times, then 3 times. So increasing rates of y is quite different, but the increasing rate of x is quite specific. This example shows that no doubt when the values of x changes, y also changes, but the changing rate between x and y values are totally different. So in this example, x and y are said to be non-linearly correlated. And third important type of correlation is simple, multiple, and partial correlation. So what is simple correlation? When the change in value of any one variable leads to corresponding change in value of another variable, then the relationship between the variables are said to become simple. The variables are simply correlated to each other. There does not arise any question of increasing or decreasing the rate of change of the variables. There does not arise any question of quite positive or negative, that means increasing or decreasing type of values. It means simple correlation means change in value of any one variable leads to change in value of other variables. So you can give example in different ways in case of simple correlation. That means we can numerically provide different types of variables under simple correlation. Next one is multiple correlation. When the change in value of any one variable leads to simultaneous change in value of another variables, then the relationship between them is called multiple correlation. In case of multiple correlation, when the value of any one variable changes, another variables must also change. For example, this is the example of multiple correlation. When the value of x increases, value of y also increases, and simultaneously value of z also increases. The relationship in between x, y, and z to be multiple correlated. And finally, another type of correlation is partial correlation. Partial correlation means when the value of one variable changes, then the value of another variable will also change, but other variables have not any significant impact. That means if there are more than two variables and the change in value of two variables have neutral effect on third variable, then the relationship between the variables is said to be partial correlation. For example, say we can take this example x, y and z. X values are 2, 3, 5, 6, y values are 1, 4, 7, 9, and the z values are say 3, 3, 3, 3. So in this example, it is clear that when the value of x increases, value of y also increases, but the value of z remains same. That means changing values of x and y have not any significant impact on change in value of z. So they are said to be partially correlated. Understand? So this is all about correlation and its different types. So in the next class we will discuss the methods of determining correlation coefficient. That means how do you derive, or how we can derive the values of correlation between the variables. So in the next class we will discuss about all this. Thank you.